Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of You and the Law. My name is Kenny Matuszewski, and today I'm happy to be your host in the first of our new feature segment called Introducing Innovation. Now, Chicago is known as a city of big shoulders, big for manufacturing and big for a lot of historical reasons. But recently, there's been a lot of technical innovations and developments going on. There's been a lot of software innovations, a lot of startup companies coming to Chicago. So it makes sense to highlight some of the organizations on the ground level that are really helping innovators and inventors get their inventions on the ground. And today I'm very happy to feature the Chicago Inventors Organization and Calvin Flowers and Mary Ann Smith, who is with the ChicagoKent Patent Hub today. So Calvin, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Chicago Inventors Organization?
Okay, well, the Chicago Inventors Organization is a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, and we were founded in 2004, and basically what we do is help the inventors navigate the invention process. And we do that in a few ways. We have monthly meetings, and we do classes, and we do an annual conference every year.
Okay. So why did you start the Chicago Inventors Organization?
Okay, you want the long or the short story on that?
Well, let's go for the long version.
Okay, well, the long version is I'm an inventor myself, and I was fortunate enough to sell my product nationwide in Walgreens. And along the way, there were no inventors organization to help me along, so I ran into every brick wall you can imagine, fell in every pothole. I raised a lot of money, messed up a lot of money, and along the way, I got a lot of publicity. Harry Porterfield, someone you should know, did a piece on me, Mary Mitchell in the Sun-Times, and as a result of that, a lot of people were calling me, and I thought they were calling me to buy my product, but they were calling me because they were inventors. And a lot of people helped me along the way, so they were saying, okay, Calvin, why don't we start up a nonprofit inventors organization? And I was so busy running my business that I didn't think I had time to do it. So I encouraged them to go ahead and do it, but they still were calling me anyway, so I ended up being part of the Chicago Inventors Organization. And my mentor at the time was saying, if you're gonna be answering all these questions, Calvin, you might as well be part of it. So that's what I did.
And history was born.
Yes.
So what types of services does the Chicago Inventors Organization offer?
Okay, well, when I say we help them, the inventor navigate the invention process, we have monthly meetings where we have experts that's relevant to the invention process, whether it be a patent attorney or Mary Ann Smith coming in talking about the pro bono patent program. We have manufacturers, investors, prototypers, the whole ball of wax. We do that every second Saturday of the month. And then we also have classes where we teach, have experts teach teach about the invention process, and also we help them with the entrepreneurial side of things as well, because if you become an inventor, more than likely you're going to end up having to be an entrepreneur at the same time. So we do that, and then we, as I mentioned before, we have the annual conference where we mostly have them we used to have them at IIT, but now we found a new home with ChicagoKent Law School, and those conferences are very well attended. We have experts from all over from every aspect of the invention process. We have them participate and share their experience and expertise. When we recruit members in our office space, we have one-on-one meetings with potential inventors or the inventors that's part of the organization, where we make an assessment of where they are, and then we make recommendations on what their next steps should be.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I know one of the specific services that you offer in addition to these monthly meetings is the Young Inventors and Entrepreneurs Program. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, that's one of the fun programs, because we get a chance to engage kids at a young age. We like to think of it as planting seeds at an early age, and And we talk about, we've done that in collaboration in the past with the Chicago Public Schools, where we actually go into the schools and we pick a class. We divide the classes up into 4 groups, and we ask them to come up with a problem, a consumer problem, and then figure out what the solution would be. And then once we do that, then that's when we divide them up, and then half the class is working on the actual development of an invention. The other one is doing the marketing and entrepreneurial strategies. So in the past, we have collaborated with the Chicago Children's Museum, and that was the biggest one. And at that particular one, when we left, the kids had their little suits on with their little inventions in front of them. And when we left, we knew we had planted seeds, innovation seeds. So, and the other partner was Wrigley, the chewing gum folks. Yeah, so they got a chance to go out to Wrigley's innovation lab out there by on Division and Goose Island, and they got a chance to make gummies and put on the lab coats, and they was they thought they was the stuff. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you divided everybody into the inventions and the entrepreneurship. So I know one of the specific services that you offer on the entrepreneurial side is in terms of pitches, like how inventors should pitch their inventions to companies. So what exactly kind of goes into these types of decision makings? Like, what are some of those mechanisms, and what is important for inventors to consider when they're making a pitch?
Well, the first part is that when we're talking about the pitching portion of it, we usually recruit somebody that's an expert in that field. In the past, we've had one of the personalities for QVC who was really good at pitching. We usually look for inventors that are close to the stage of actually launching their products, or they're actually launching it and they are looking for funding, or they're trying to pitch to a buyer. So some of the things that go into it is they have to understand what the sales sheets looks like, what their marketing strategies are, and that sort of thing. So
yeah. It's pretty cool. So now so after clients have worked with you at the Chicago Inventors Organization, so where do they generally go next? Do they go seek patents? Do they form their own businesses? So after the inventors use you as a resource to help out with their inventions, where do they go next?
Well, first of all, they still stay with us throughout the whole process. We like to think that no matter what stage they come to us, we still, as I mentioned before, I'm an inventor myself, and I even though I was in Walgreens, I still was making mistakes. So I still needed that coaching. So where the inventors, when they come to us, the goal is to help them start their business, to set up their business structure, go through the manufacturing process, and then actually start marketing their products out there. So we have a couple at that point right now that's actually selling in the market, but they still come back to us for consulting.
Wonderful. Okay. So I know actually, and another resource that you use if inventors want to seek IP protection is the ChicagoKent Patent Hub. So how and you and the ChicagoKent Patent Hub work with each other?
Okay. Right now, our organization has over 70 folks, 70 members with patents, and it was before we. A lot of them probably had patents on their own when they first came to the organization, but the process was kind of slow trying to get them to the point where they were actually getting filing their patents. But then when we met Mary Ann, then that accelerated with the pro bono program. So we were really grateful to Mary Ann and all the assistance that she's given us, and I think we turned into a good partnership. So we refer a lot of folks over that way, some good, some bad. Some Mary Ann calls me up and says, Calvin, why did you send that person over here? But for the most part, I think we have a really, really good relationship, and Mary Ann has been diligent on helping folks get their patents. So.
Mary Ann, so thanks again for joining us today. So it seems like you really work with Calvin a lot. You've not only with the Chicago's Inventor Organization, but inventors from all over the state of Illinois. So can you tell us a little bit about specifically with the ChicagoKent Patent Hub?
Well, there are 22 patent hubs around the country. Every state has a patent hub that covers it. Some cover multiple states, some cover one state. We cover the state of Illinois. So any inventor who satisfies our income requirements and passes an initial screening on the invention can get assistance from us.
Okay.
Our general income requirements are 300% of poverty level. We are a pilot program for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Organization with veterans. So veterans that come to us will be eligible at 500% of poverty level. So we see anyone that wants to talk to us. We have an application online. We have a website we're part of ChicagoKent. We have a website there with information for inventors, and then we have an application on that website. They submit the application to us. We invite them in for an interview and take it from there.
Okay. So so you mentioned the screening process a little bit earlier. So what exactly goes through? So how do you decide from there in order to what clients should do in order to be seen at the interview stage? Is there anything in particular?
No, we see anybody. And we see
wonderful.
inventors that are obviously not eligible for us because it's obvious from their application. But we have about 20 or 22 law firms and about 60 attorneys that work with us. Many of those, especially in the smaller firms, will take inventors that are over income and see if they can help them.
Yeah, so with that in mind, now, so does the Patent Hub only allow for patents, or does it allow for inventors to seek other forms of intellectual property protection?
No, we only do patents. Depending on what else it is, some things we can refer to lawyers for the creative arts. There are trademark clinics in some of the other law schools. So we will try to refer them if they need other assistance, but we only do patents.
Okay. So what's been your favorite invention that's passed through the Patent Hub?
Well, we just got our 40th patent recently.
Congratulations.
So, yes, thank you. So there are a lot of them. Some of the ones that are more interesting, there's one that's a cleaner for movable handrails, like on escalators.
Okay.
There's another one that someone got fairly recently. It's a covering that goes on the finger for people that are visually impaired, and it runs over the printed words and translates it to words on a cell phone.
Okay, that's really interesting. So with that in mind, so I guess so I guess this is a question for both of you. So why should inventors come to you guys? So, and I know the inventive process seems very scary and confusing, but why should people come to you?
We're free.
So with that in mind, now's a pretty good time for a break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And welcome back, everybody, to You and the Law. So, Marianne, we had some really interesting ideas that we were discussing earlier on. And when I often talk to people on the street, they think that a patent is an idea on something that you can get protected. But what exactly is a patent? And what can you get protected? Can it be an idea?
Well, my disclaimer is that I am an attorney. I am not a patent attorney. So
I'm a patent attorney, though, so that's something
That's right.
that I can help out with.
A patent is the right to prevent someone else from selling your invention. It doesn't give you any specific rights other than to prevent someone else from selling your invention. So that's what it is. It has to be something that you can make. It cannot be an idea. And so, and it's a lengthy process in the Patent and Trademark Office. Generally, it's about 2 years for what are called utility patents, and maybe a year or so for design patents. And so I'll let Kenny fill in the blanks on all of
Yeah.
that.
So I mean, it can generally be pretty expensive too, right? So I know that a lot of times when you have giant corporations filing, like some of these fees are pretty large. But what's out there is there's actually what's known as a entity fee. So which that means if you're a person off the street, if you have your own idea that you come up with, you actually don't have to pay the patent office that much. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, the big expense, as you probably well know, is attorney's fees. Attorney's fees can run $10,000, $12,000, $14,000
Wow.
for a simple invention. So by our program being pro bono, inventors do not pay attorney's fees. They do pay all the filing fees to the Patent and Trademark Office. The initial fees for filing are in the neighborhood of $500. There are fees when the patent issues. There are renewal fees along the way, but compared to the attorney's fees, they're really minimal.
Yeah, they almost seem more like kind of now I don't want to say a drop in the pond, but there's something that where the average citizen could save up for it at least.
Yes, but people that are in the 300% of poverty level range, for them, it's often a lot of money, and we've had people drop out because the fees become too difficult. They also have to pay for any drawings or prototypes that go with the inventions. So I always tell them that they can't be totally broke to participate in the process. And just to give you an idea of what the poverty guidelines mean, for this year, for a single person, a household of one, our income guideline for them at 300% is $37,000. Up to a family of four, it goes up to $77,000. And a veteran at a family of four could make $129,000 and still be eligible. But that's still not a lot of money when you consider everything that's involved in getting a patent.
And so that's almost something where that sometimes despite access to these services, where it can be almost prohibitively expensive to get a patent. But that's where people like Chicago Inventors Organization and Calvin can come in, is that even with intellectual property protection being very expensive, it allows you to have a chance to get some pitches going, have your business heard. So is that something where you see a lot of times, maybe if people are in the process of getting a patent, you see them going forward with their businesses and their inventions?
Yes, and just to piggyback on some of the things that Mary Ann was saying. Now, as she was saying, that you have to be able to make that. You can't just have an idea. You have to be able to make develop the idea. So we have 3D printers one 3D printer. I'd like to have more. But we also partner with M-Hub and some other resources around the city to help them actually get their computer-aided drawings.
So can you tell me a little bit about M-Hub really quickly? I know that, and where that is. I know I've heard it's somewhere not too far away from here in the near west side of Chicago. So who do they see, and how do they really help you?
Well, they are a membership organization, and really their monthly fees are pretty steep, especially for an inventor that doesn't have a whole lot of money. So the relationship that we're having with M-Hub is that we take out the membership, and then we have a person that has a presence over at M-Hub, and we send our members to M-Hub, and then they actually do the computer-aided drawings and the 3D printing and what have you.
But there's also the Fab Lab at the University of Chicago. It's part of the Polsky Center for Entrepreneurship. Their fees are much more reasonable.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of organization. It's a membership organization, and they offer classes and something similar to what you do, but they're similar to M-Hub, but they're newer and not as well known, and they're not as expensive. I've talked at both of them and talked to their inventors about how the Patent Hub works.
So is that something where, say for example, if say you have an inventor from the Patent Hub or from Chicago Inventors Organization kind of thinking of these next steps, I mean, is there something that maybe would favor one over the other? Is maybe just costs? Is there certain things where I know we're in pretty different locations and everything, but it might just be something like what would kind of choose one over the other?
I would choose the Fab Lab because it's on the south side.
And I'm using MHub because Fab Lab, I met the folks over at the Fab Lab, but I haven't had a real conversation with them. Versus I have had a lot of conversation with MHub. So right now MHub, but I'm anticipating having a conversation with Fab Lab.
And they are far less expensive.
Okay.
They're far less expensive.
Yeah, so I guess, Calvin, this is something that I find interesting. We're talking a little bit about some of these other organizations, but ultimately, it's been part of your work, particularly with the Chicago Inventors Organization. So what's been your favorite experience like as director and chief officer of the Chicago Inventors Organization?
Well, it's been a lot. I've been really excited about folks getting patents, especially at the rate we're getting them from Kent Law School, Patent Hub. But I think my most exciting moment was when we actually got an office space.
Oh, really?
When we first started, we were meeting people at McDonald's and Chicago, the Chicago Public Library and places like that.
Yeah.
And then we really started getting traction, and we got enough members where we could actually afford to get our own space. So that's probably the most exciting thing for me. So.
That's one thing that we haven't mentioned. The Chicago Public Library, every state, I believe, has a library that's a resource for the Patent and Trademark Office. And ours is at the Harold Washington Library, and they have an extensive resource collection of patent-related materials, and
and a really great innovation center on the third floor. I've walked by there a few times, and it always has looked super cool. So
Yes.
have you had a chance to visit it?
I've visited, I've spoken there, and I've sent inventors there who aren't ready for us. They help the inventors do a little research to see what they should be doing, and they have computers available, and so they're a hidden resource, actually.
Yeah, and they have a maker lab over there also. We have sent people, we have developed the computer-aided drawings, through some of our resources, and then to get the 3D print, we sent them over there to the Harold Washington Library.
Perfect. So, Marianne, you mentioned that these centers provide a place for these inventors to do research who might not necessarily be ready to come to the Patent Hub yet. So what exactly is the type of research that they should be doing, like in order to make it so that if they wanted to come back to the Patent Hub, that they would be able to successfully find a patent attorney to work with them?
Well, our requirements generally are that they be able to describe, they need to come in with a written description of their invention and a drawing or a prototype or something, and then I grill them on whether they really know how to make it. And it helps if they do a prior art search. They can get help with that at the library. Now, we don't expect them to, have a professional prior art search. But
so what is a prior art search? I think it's a very specialized term of art in the patent world. And I think it's something that would benefit everybody to know what exactly that is and what goes into it.
Well, if you know your invention well, you can go to Google Patents, which is pretty easy to find. And I know a lot of attorneys use Google Patents.
Myself included.
Yes. And you put in as many words as you can think of that relate to your invention, and you see if something pops up. Now, sometimes they find something that looks exactly like what they're trying to do, and if they brought that to us, we'd say, okay, looks like you're out of luck. I never, and you well know this, I never tell an inventor that the prior art excludes them because I'm not a patent attorney. So I always send it to a patent attorney for confirmation.
Yep.
But we send the prior art along, and sometimes I say, okay, this looks just like it. What do you think?
Yep.
And then I can say to them, a patent attorney said. But sometimes they can turn that up themselves from all the materials at the library.
Yeah, so I mean, what exactly is the significance then of a prior art search? Is it something that is almost for sure limiting? Like, would it 100% preclude them from getting a patent?
Well, that's for the patent attorney to determine, but sometimes they find the same invention. But it gives them an idea of what's out there, and I think, Calvin, it probably gives them an idea of what the competition in the market would be like. Even if theirs can be distinguished, you want to say, okay, if you're going to go and sell this and that one's already making a boatload of money, are you going to be able to get into that market? But that's not our business, that's Calvin's business.
Yeah. So what exactly goes into something that you can tell, maybe there's been a few products that you've seen, like, this is really going to fly off the shelves and everything, or maybe this is going to just be straight, or maybe this is something that needs a little bit more work.
Well, look, yeah. Well, sometimes a little bit more work. Sometimes you might see something that when they're doing the search, they may see something that really looks like, act like what they have. We encourage them, if they still want to pursue that, to make some, tweak it in some type of way to make some type of modification. And the other thing is, we never tell an inventor that the idea is going to make it or is not going to make it. That's when sometimes me and Mary Ann have our differences, because we're not in the business to tell you that your idea is a flop.
Right. I mean, people thought Apple computers were like, this was almost, what is this, back in the 80s and everything.
Well, and if you're paying fees to an attorney, though, it's a different discussion about whether to go forward, because you're going to have to look at whether there's a likelihood of recovering what you're spending. Whereas in a pro bono program like ours, we don't even look at that. They can make that judgment themselves, but they are only paying fees, and as you said, those fees really are minimal in comparison with everything else. So we don't have to make that judgment for good or for bad.
Right.
I mean, maybe they should be, but it's not. I consider it not my job to do that.
It's still something to consider, and I think it's something that for every inventor that they really need to do their homework about. But it seems like that there's a lot of these resources out there that are really available for them to use, to consult, and to really think about. And we have been talking a lot about all sorts of different things. We've been talking about the library, we've been talking about the Polsky Center, we've been talking about M-Hub. But ultimately, before all these other services, why should people come to you?
Chicago, well,
I guess
we're free.
to both.
she got the
Yes,
easy
but
one.
the Chicago Inventors Organization
well,
specifically.
Most inventors, when they're all excited about their invention, they think they're going to change the world, they're going to make a ton of money, but they are scared as heck. They are terrified, and they don't know what the next step is. As I mentioned before, I've been through the idea stage to the market. And I also went through litigation.
Oh, wow. How was that?
It was a nightmare, but we prevailed in court. I won't say the name of the company that infringed on the patent, but we prevailed in court. But just getting back to your question, inventors don't know what the next step is. They're terrified. And I guess what I've kind of been, a lot of people helped me along the way, and I just feel like I need to play that forward, so to speak. And so our whole job is to help them, put one foot in front of the other and go as far as they can in the process.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and a special thank you to our viewers for tuning in today for our latest You in the Law segment. So please tune in next time. We'll have some very interesting programs coming up. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your nights.